With us in the studios this morning to discuss the issues, let's welcome a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. He is a former national chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council and incumbent chair of the National Conscience Party. Dr. Yunusa Tanko, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
We also have with us in the studios Adamu Garba II. He's a presidential aspirant at the All Progressives Congress. Now, this is the second time he will be aspiring, because in the 2019 election, he also wanted to get his heart into the ring. Adamu Garba II, delighted to have you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and we also have in the studio here Senator Nkechi Nwogu, PhD, Ugongwa Indibo, here Abiam, Pro-Chancellor of University of Calabar, and former member of House of Representatives 2017-2021, Senator 2017 to 2015.
An aspirant.
Yes, that's your last appearance of the Senate. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right,
good morning, and good morning, viewers.
Okay, and also joining us via Zoom from Abuja is Bashiru Ni Salako, political analyst, a Nigerian who was once a resident in UK. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for inviting us.
Also with us via Zoom from Germany is Honorable Chibogo Kenneth Bandi, Deputy National Chairman, Diaspora Engagement, African Democratic Congress, ADC, and Senatorial Aspirant for Delta North. It's good to have you join us all the way from Germany this morning.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, so once again, our pleasure to have all the guests with us for the conversation this morning. Let's begin with Senator Nkechi Nwogu. The subject matter, of course, it's one that we began yesterday, namely the high cost of expression of interests and nomination forms, which has now been likened to as a very viable source of IGR for the political parties. What are your thoughts?
Good morning once again. Yes, there has been calls from various quarters with regards to various parties' cost of nomination forms. Yes, ordinarily they look high. 100 million for my party. I belong to the All Progressives Congress, and for presidential, you have 100 million. For governorship, you have 50 million. And for Senate, you have 20 million. And so on. And for your House of Reps, 10 million. There's a school of thought that in the party administration, it comes under 2-3 prongs, while especially my party decided to peg these nomination forms and the expression of interest cost to these amounts, as I mentioned earlier. Over the years, it's been discovered that some people might apply political strategy by getting people from an area where a strong contestant is from, and they can pay small amounts of money, especially for the purposes of primaries. They can pay 2, 3, 4 aspirants. They know they are not going anywhere, but they are just called political stoppers. Political stoppers. And they come and they divide the delegate votes, which ordinarily would go to the desired aspirant, to give that person a winning streak. That is one prong. Because if somebody is hoisting a candidate, fake or pseudo candidates for that purpose, when the cost as it is high, that strategy has failed, because nobody will bring pseudo aspirants just to stop somebody who ordinarily would be a winning candidate. That's one. Secondly, it has also been found over the years that when somebody becomes an aspirant, you become a candidate, then they become eventually they win. You don't see them again supporting the party. The party becomes beggarly. I was once, I started from Deputy National Treasurer of All Nigerian People's Party, AMPP. Then I became Acting National Treasurer. It was a position I held for 3 years. So I know the funding of party administration. The parties end up becoming beggarly, and you know they say, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So by putting this cost high, at least the party is like an income generating exercise for future use, and to remove the parties from going to few people who will eventually take the party and do whatever they want to do. So it is another way of the party having some income in their pockets. That's it, a second one. And the third prong is aspirants ordinarily will come on their own just to say, let me, if I pay my money, or if people know that I'm running for governorship, you know, at least your name, who, you know, is it becomes a title. He was once a governorship aspirant, senatorial aspirant, and so on and so forth. But as the cost of these nomination forms are today, nobody, no unserious person will go into purchase of nomination forms if you are not really serious to do the contest. So these are the three prongs. These are the three school of thoughts why most parties, including my party, why they have placed the cost of nomination form and the expression of interest to this amount.
Okay, we'll get back to you, but there's one point you made, you know, which struck me, because we had this conversation yesterday. I want to mention the issue of raising funds for the party, and that brings to the fore the idea that Nigerian political parties are not well grounded, you know, in terms of proper management and being well structured, where members don't pay dues, like we find in other climes, right? And they still claim to be members of the party. And on the other hand, you are saying that many people are not allowed to come in, perhaps because of the amount of money you're talking about. Assuming 100 people pay 50 million naira, and 2 or 3 people pay 100 million naira, you know, to pay the form. I mean, the other, you will still have more money when you have more people participating. But that's just by the way. Let's bring in Dr. Yunusa Tanko here. Let's get your take on this on this matter, the issue of a high cost of nomination forms and the expression of interest for Nigerian political parties.
Okay. At the point, I thought really that the APC will leverage on the way they manage the, what would I call it, the national chairman, their convention, where most of the contestants were asked to drop their ambition, and then even at a point in time, a person like former governor of Nasarawa State, Tanko Makura, who worked hard trying to see if he can get the ticket, we are promised that they will be paid back their money. That one reduced and it showed cohesion within the party, and then it could have sent a very good signal if they leverage on that. But then there, all of a sudden they just hit us, bam, with the big bam that you want 100 million. That is like consolidating and accepting that there's a corruption in the system, or exalting corruption. Because what it simply means is that people will not look for money anyhow. Interestingly, here we are in the country where Nigerians are saying that ASU is on strike, and a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with the Minister of Education, small Minister of Education, is paying 100 million naira. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You are vying for an office that even the salary of that particular office is not even up to that particular amount of money that you are paying to contest election. We have people in that same cabinet
who, I mean, we have even governors who are having problem with their own states as regard to payment of welfare salaries to people, and yet they are paying 100 million. There's no way you can justify it. And so I think it is corruption-induced fees that we are having. And you can look at the way indeed it is increasing. At a point in time in 2019, PDP generated 3 billion naira, while APC generated 7 billion naira. That 7 billion naira, for example, is enough to take care of another state entirely. And it's not as if probably that particular sum of money will say, okay, if you pay this X amount of money, it will be used to take care of all the campaigns so that you don't need to pay any money anymore. No, it's not like that. The Punch newspaper did a review on an editorial, and they gave a synopsis of some of the expenses that are being carried out in some other countries. Like, for example, in the UK, in fact, you can pay as low as 500 pounds refundable at a point in time if you meet a threshold. That's to encourage contestants. And then in the UK, in the state of California, in the state of Iowa, you pay a zero amount of money. But in the state of South Carolina, which happened to be the highest, you could pay as almost as 40 US dollars. Then in the state, of course, which is vary. Now, each state has like $1,000, which is equivalent to about exchange rate of 414. That would be like 4 point something million naira. You understand? So, and these are rates that encourages contestants to run for elections. But here we are in a country where we are highly indebted. People cannot eat 3 square meals. We are talking about paying 100 million naira for contesting for an election. It is absurd. It is a treasonable felony against the Nigerian people. It makes the Nigerian people look as if we have so much money and yet we are in abject poverty. It is totally unacceptable, and I think it is high time for people like Garba, who are young contestants, and women too who want to contest. You cannot imagine. I don't imagine any woman can raise about 100 million naira to say she wants to contest election in Nigeria as of today. Where? So people like Garba could use this opportunity now to raise a normal protest, electoral process, to reduce, because you are talking about the future. Yesterday it was 45 million. Today is 100 million. It's going to skyrocket to another level, that where anybody who has the credibility to run for election in this country will not be able to run for election at all. So I think it is high time we challenge this particular obnoxious and astronomical way of challenging the Nigerian people to run for election, so that we can stem it down, so that credible people can be able to run for election. If we don't do it now, it means that in the future we will not get any credible Nigerian to run for election. And with respect to the senator, she was saying the idea of probably the school of thought as regard to whether to stop some people. They call them stoppers. In fact, I read in the social media, in the Hausa language, they said they want to stop Sheanu. They call it Satans. They want to stop them. Okay, let's assume, does it mean that there's no any other way of stopping all those stoppers? There are. You just need to think deeply. You can use policy statements.
Disqualification.
To disqualify and screen. You don't need to have money, and you say, okay, X amount of ABCD, the APC need, for example, or PDP needs you to give us a template. How can you deal with unemployment? How can you deal with education issues? How can you deal with the pandemic issue of electricity? When you have that particular threshold, if you cannot meet it, you are disqualified. And yet, you can take care of this particular stoppers or whatever. I know it happens, but this particular using of money cannot be justifiable for stopping any stopper or anybody from running for election, because they can also use any strategy again to come and cause mayhem in your party.
All right, Dr. Yunus Atanko, no disappointment at all from your opening salvo, but let's get a few things in perspective. I know it might be a manner of speaking. The fees being charged by political parties for expression of interest and nomination, those fees, the payment and collection do not amount to treasonable felony. That's one. Second point, you also said that some of the aspirants have been paying these amounts to collect the forms. The reports that we have read indicate that it is groups and friends and associates that have collected these forms on their behalf by making the payments. I don't think, Kieran, I read anywhere where any one aspirant stepped forward and issued a check or to say that this is from me personally. You have all kinds of groups. But even the group issue is one thing that we also raised yesterday, that namely, who are these groups? We have laws against terrorism financing, we have laws against money laundering, and the FIRS is also there. Who are these persons?
That is what many Nigerians are talking about. When you say that a group of people came, contributed money and gave to you, who are those individuals that are doing that? Nigerians don't want to believe that.
Yes.
Well, somebody said in our program yesterday that most of the people contesting have the money to pay, that they are rich, that have the money to pay. And he was also a contestant, right? He said, look, that many of them have the money. But everybody will say, oh, this group are asking me to come. In the history of Nigerian politics, people will say, oh, my people are calling me, telling me to come and contest. Oh, my people are stopping me that I should go and do this. Now it has boiled down to the fact that people are contributing money and giving to me to go and run for an election and things like that. So Nigerians don't want to believe that.
All right, Kieran, I just wondering. Satanko, we'll return to you. Let's bring in Adamu Garba II. I'm sure you listened to Dr. Yunus Satanko, and he said that this will be an opportunity for you to, as another young persons, to protest against the high nomination fees. But I wanted to start out by saying that you look very prosperous, and so one would not expect any protest from you to participate in the primaries as an aspirant. Last time you tried it in 2019. Now here we are this year, high cost of nomination fees. The bar is much higher. What are your thoughts?
Yes, thank you very much. I heard the answers given by distinguished senator and also Dr. Tanko. And it is very clear that the strategy based on what she asserted, that the party is trying to, let me use the word from Oyogun, separate men from the boys. It's a very good thing, but the strategy adopted is a very wrong strategy. You can't financialize an office that's supposed to deliver public good. There are codent strategies that you employ to be able to filter the candidates based on their content, their capacity to deliver, and their abilities to be able to showcase the way to solve all the myriad of challenges we face in this country today. That is how you filter men from the boys. And how you do that? By looking at these candidates and asking each and every one of them to provide a letter of intent if they want to aspire for the office of the president. Since the party is standing, is an internal affair, the party should subject these candidates to thorough review, thorough debate over a period of time, filter those qualities that will be agreeable, sellable to the public. Then from there, you can now say it that yes, you have actually filtered men from the boys. But the situation whereby you just put money as the main reason why you are filtering men from the boys, you are actually making a very serious consequences upon the credibility of the party itself. It means that anyone at all, provided you have 100 million naira, you can be able to aspire for office of the president under our great party, the APC. It means if today I'm a kidnapper and I kidnap some people and then call for negotiation, I will get my 100 million naira and also come forward, hire a group, like you rightly said, and then they'll just go and buy the phone for me. If I used to do Yahoo, I can do that. If I'm a drug trafficker, I can do that. Who is, among all these candidates, who is providing security solution to all the problems we are facing in this country? Can the party say that we have security issue, we have economy issue, we have healthcare issue, we have education issue as asserted by Dr. Tanko, and then ask this candidate to provide solutions? The one that is most bought by Nigerians should determine that candidate should be the one who put forward. If you go back to other countries, it is clear. Like he rightly said, when you look at the Punch editorial, Premium Times editorial, and so many editorial, it was published in so many states, but especially in the country where we inherit our democracy from, in the United States of America. The standard they use to benchmark the cost for purchasing this kind of forms is actually based on the per capita GDP. US today have about $62,000 per capita GDP. Nigeria have $2,400 per capita GDP. So if you go to based on that standard, they try to break it based on their minimum wage and make sure that each person that is aspiring for any public office can be able to acquire a firm by saving only a month's salary. That is why the average price for members of state assembly in the US is like $780. The average price for the cost of becoming a governor in the United States today is $3,400. The average price for aspiring to be the president in the US is $5,000. Now, if you go back to France, where we just finished our election now, where they finished the election recently, the average qualification for a candidate, in addition to belonging to one order and one association and one group of people, is to have a minimum annual income of 100,000 euro, per annum. That's what they do. So because based on this and based on your connections and the network over, you can be able to do that. In fact, in some states in the US, like Iowa, you need like $40,000 simply because of their local tax requirement. But in other constituencies, you only need signatures. For office of the president in that country, perhaps maybe you just need to go back to your constituency and collect 5,000 signatures, approving that you are qualified enough to go and aspire for the president of your country. That's enough qualification. You don't even have to pay anything. Now, if you come back to Africa, in Ghana here, for you to acquire the form to become the president of Ghana, you spend $2,000. So this is exactly how it is done. But the situation whereby you financialize, you are not going to escape that rapture that distinguished senator suggested. Like, look at what's happening. There are so many contestants that have come forward that were not predicted before. Fashola is joining the race. Amosun is joining the race. You have some people are even projecting President Goodluck Jonathan is joining the race. Some people are saying Akiumi Adesina is joining the race. Dimeji Bankole is. So many people are just coming out. So it means what the party is trying to escape by making this kind of arrangement of financializing, we are converting the party back to a situation whereby we have like a motor park. Why? Because as soon as you pay, it means you pick. So if you put something as pay for service, you are always giving incentive for people that have even stolen public fund to come and disrupt the system. We have seen the situation where we are having today in the party. In the last congresses, we have about 205 legal cases consuming 1.8 billion naira of party's fund to solve legal challenges. So the party decided to say, okay, let's up the fund and stop the boys. Fine, they have upped the fund, but have they stopped the boys? Most of the people contesting are all coming from public offices. They have gotten access to money, some of them legitimately, some of them illegitimately. They are paying the 100 million naira to acquire the fund very soon, and those people will say we will not step down. Why? Because they know that our president, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari's tenure is ending. In the next less than a little bit above 1 year, he will be out. All of them are trying to define what will be their destiny after him. So if they do not predict which will be the president, they should at least be part of the negotiation of how the president is produced. And the only way to do that is to buy the form and get into the field and fight the case. So they may eventually even go to court and then bring in, you may end up having 20 candidates paying 100 million naira. That's 2 billion naira. And you ended up spending 5 billion naira legal cases. Because we've seen it now. So this is the challenge. So it does not solve any problem. Make sure you pay attention to competency and capacity of these candidates, their quality, their integrity, for you to be able to filter them. That's how to separate men from the boys. And that is why I don't believe this is a good thing for the future generation, especially my generation. We don't believe in it. Therefore, we don't believe we should financialize everything in Nigeria. Right. Because the only office that's supposed to deliver public good and reverse the financialization of our healthcare, financialization of education, even our roads. You cannot ply our roads without heavy security if you are a public figure. So it means everything is financialized in Nigeria. The only way to reverse the financialization of the system is to get the office that is supposed to deliver public good, which is now going to be financialized. That's a pure Okada man arrangement, and it's not really good.
Okay, thank you so much. This is coming from a different generation, it's organized now. We've learned that word. Thank you. Let's go to Germany, where we have Honorable Chibuogu Kenneth Bwandi. You have listened to our guests here in the studio, and I'm sure you have already formed an opinion. So let's get that your view with respect to the topic for today, which is the high cost of nomination forms and the form for expression of interest.
Thank you so much, sir, and good morning once again, and good morning, Nigeria. Yes, I've listened to very robust debate and contribution from the panel.
Dr.
And then from our distinguished senator, when I was hearing her reasons why probably the form from her party is so exorbitant, I was just shaking my head. And thank God the last speaker was able to touch on that. That if monetary policy is going to be the criteria, to select presidential aspirant, then we're in a very big trouble in Nigeria. Because of course, by so doing, you have simply discriminated the youth, you have simply discriminated the technocrats, who are basically in every society, the bane, the broom, the powerhouse behind every policy making, so to say. And if the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is being, chosen from the party level based on the ability of how much you can pay, then we have an issue with that. That's one. But secondly, we think it's morally, politically, and even economically wrong. That in a country where we're having the ASU, the university teachers on strike, where we're having a cost of living very, very high, rocketing every day, that we could be talking about 100 million for a political form. I mean, that is basically, something that one has to, cry about. But having said all that, the important thing also is that if, like the last panelist or the last speaker said, if we have a political party or two political parties, as the case may be, generating over between 3 and 7 billion naira for their nomination or for their political nomination forms, you can realize why we're having a lot of instability both in the parties and also in Nigeria. Because the party, according to the last speaker, which I also agree with, who is actually having a budget bigger than a state budget, is in a position to destabilize not even the government or their party, but also to destabilize the country. If they have so much money within their party, then it becomes that the party and not the individual, actually who is the person controlling the party. And that is why we have good intended people you think that when they come into an office, they are definitely going to do miracles or do wonders. And you wonder that when they get into the office, they become very, very ineffective. And one wonders what is the reason. And we can see exactly one of the reasons now. That if a party becomes so much, if it becomes so rich, financially, empowered, that they are even bigger than a certain state, so to say, in Nigeria. And of course, that they basically control the policies and control the system in their political parties. And even when they are elected into a certain position like the governorship or the president, that the party, becomes stronger than the individual themselves to be able to do what they set out to do. So I think it's a very, very wrong precedent, a very, very wrong. Whatever they want to justify, whether it's a strategy to discriminating the boys from those people who are not serious. Why can't we even think about using criteria as the ability to perform? Why can't we use the ability of your report card, your pedigrees, what you have done in the civil service, what you have done in your company, what you have done in any of the profession as a criteria to select who is going to run for the presidency rather than using money? But it's very, very clear that if we want quality people, if we want credible people in Nigeria to come to aspire for the office of the President of the Republic of Nigeria, I don't know how many technocrats, I don't know how many students that will afford 100 million for a political form. So it's very obvious that by setting up that misplaced strategy, that will definitely taking away the technocrats, taking away credible youth, taking away people who innovators, global leaders who have probably the ability to contribute to the country, but they lack the financial resources. And so I think there must be, and there should be every other means of addressing that. I don't know if it's possible. I think we have to come with a legislation that actually limit the amount the political parties are allowed to charge if we are going to have a headway in that country in terms of a credible selection of candidates.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Chibuogu. We'll return to you later in the course of the conversation. Now, let's go back to Abeokuta, where we earlier introduced Basharun Neye Salako. He's been our guest previously on Good Morning Nigeria. He's with us again via Zoom this morning. He was once resident in the UK. I'm sure you've listened to the other guest, Basharun. Let's have your take on this and perhaps shoot off with a comparative analysis.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. I've listened to what the previous panelists have said, and I'm going to take a different view here. Um, not agreeing that the prices are reasonable. They are scandalous. There's no doubt about it. But I think what we have to do here is to understand that party administration is very expensive. And every year, every election cycle rather, this debate comes up about the cost of expression of interest and nomination funds. And it continues to increase cycle by cycle by cycle. There's no doubt that it is scandalous, it is non-inclusive, it is discriminatory, and all those things that the previous speakers have said about it. But we still have to address the issue of administering political parties and the cost of it. We know that in more advanced climes, people have taken, this idea of dues very seriously and building up funds for political administration over a period of time. What happened to the monthly dues that people used to pay? What happens to institutional funders as well who support political parties? For me, it goes back to the fact that our political parties are just purely vehicles to grab or attain power. There's no ideology. Now, I lived in the United Kingdom for a very long time, and you have the two major political parties, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. The Labour Party is funded mainly by the labor unions and all those other people. And that's because the ideology of the Labour Party, if you like, is welfareist. So you can see where they're coming from. People can put their money towards it and they get their funds over a period of time. The Conservative Party, on the other hand, you understand, yes, they have big donors who are not necessarily the people who are contesting for office. Now, what I have a challenge here is that it is those people who are contesting for office who are the ones paying these huge sums of money. And of course, there's no way that you're going to pay money and you're not going to find a way to recover your money. Forget all these groups and all these things that people talk about. They're all proxies. You understand? Which group is good? You hear people saying youths have gathered money together to pay their funds for them. Which youths? Where are the youths getting the money from? All these things are proxies, and I think we shouldn't deceive ourselves. I should just go back to what the distinguished senator said about weeding. How has this 100 million weeded the number of people who are participating? The number of people, rather than decreasing, is increasing every day. Every day you're hearing more and more people joining that race. I don't think that you can say that the numbers is a reflection of seriousness. I think it's even more a reflection of unseriousness by the political parties themselves. So I agree with some of the speakers here who said, surely there must be other ways in which you will read the wheat from the chaff. You understand? I think that the fact that we've got changes in the electoral law that has brought this process forward is making it more obvious and is giving us plenty of time to debate. Democracy will continue to be debated and deepened. And I think it's time for us again to go back and look at some of our laws and look at how party funding as a whole, because the excuse is always, oh yes, we have to generate funds for elections, we have to generate funds to run the party and all that. But there must be ways in which we can do this that is less encouraging of corruption, that is less, you know, it's just scandalous. Words cannot say it. 100 million naira for expression of interest, from which in a few days' time you will find that a lot of people here will now say, uh, you put it, you put it. Sorry, I'm having problems with the network here.
Hear you now. We saw you. We saw your finger trying to manipulate your system. Can you hear me?
That's right.
All right. So
Okay.
just yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying you will find that in a short while, yeah, you will see that these people will start to use this expression of interest, 100 million, to negotiate for positions in the party or in the new government. I have paid 100 million naira, so therefore I think I qualify to be minister, or I think I qualify to be chairman, or whatever else that the positions are that are out there to share. We should continue to deepen this. And the sad thing is that this happens every election cycle. I recall the president, right, when he was contesting, I think in previous cycles, was complaining about the 25 million that he had to pay. And now he's pretending an astronomical increase in the price of nomination forms. It's just not excuse. It's just not acceptable. And I think that we should continue as a nation to see how we can encourage the young people, the non-included people, the women to come in. I think it's time. I think it really is time for us as a nation, you stand, to go back and review the entire political process. I think that you cannot continue to move on in this direction. We need this review of our constitution, root and branch, where the electoral law is conflicting with the constitution, where the constitution is conflicting with root and branch, is what we need.
Thank you indeed, Bashiru Ni Salako. We'll return to the studio here. And I would like specifically Senator or a distinguished Senator Nkechi Nwogu to respond to some of the points made by the other speakers. As a matter of fact, their points are just at variance, with what you submitted earlier on. So I'd like you to respond to all that.
Thank you once again. Like I said earlier, the reason, and I'm talking about my own party, the AP All Progressive Congress, the reason for the hike is that the cost of administering the process to electing candidates is enormous, and there is always the feeling that some sections of this country that have money have hijacked the party and determines who goes where. And parties are trying to be financially independent. The only way our party today and other parties, I believe, they would have in place for this general election next year various committees that will need to be funded. Even in elections, I could recall in 2019, for the first time in history, I saw a party giving to candidates this time support fund for election. I've contested under AMPP where I went as House of Rep. There was no such thing. I contested as a Senate for Senate in PDP. There was little or nothing. But in 2019, under this APC, it was a different thing. A party can only do that when they are funded. A party can only be financially independent when they have their own funds. So, and right now, yes, the issue of 100 million, and many people, in spite of the huge amount, many people have declared intentions. Let us see how many of them will actually pick the forms, that is by making this payment. And another point I want the viewers to know is that in my party, the party has considerations for youths and women. For a youth that is running for presidency of this country, there is a 50% discount. And for women, it is free all over, all through. So I think these are one of the areas they have really applied the consideration that a youth might not be in, a good youth might not be in possession of this said 100 million or 50 million and so on and so forth. Then we are talking about breeding corruption. No, I don't see it as breeding corruption. Like I said, let's see how many of them, maybe we jumped the guns by talking about the cost of nomination. Definitely, the cost applied for various positions will definitely be a deterrent to time wasters and people who will ordinarily just be contesting for the sake of being recognized as aspirants, like somebody mentioned, so that you now say, I am an aspirant and I have picked, if the cost were pegged at for presidential, like for 20 million, you will see hundreds of them coming to pick this form. And I think that parties are expected to fund the process of election from screening, delegate, election proper, and other costs that are attached without going to Mr. A to borrow or to ask for money, who will in turn direct the direct the affairs of the party.
I'm not cutting you short here, please. But what about the issue of, members of the party paying annual dues, which are obtainable elsewhere? So that because election cycle is.
If you recall, in 2015, when I joined APC, we were told that this party will be self-funding, as is normally done in other climes. But I can assure you that that was criticized. And how do you expect a rural person maybe to be paying 100 naira every month? You see, that reminds me, or that takes us back to civic education, where people will realize that we call ourselves stakeholders. You must stake in order to hold. When you don't stake, you don't hold. If it were possible, from word, people at the wards, they make their contributions, whatever it is agreed upon, whether it's 50 naira per month or 100 naira per month, and so on and so forth. It would have been better. But tell me which of our parties in Nigeria do this subscriptions.
Well, distinguished Senator, thank you very much for your comments, as well as your sketch of the reality of political parties in Nigeria, whether indeed they are political parties, properly so-called. Yesterday, during this conversation, the first part, we gave the analogy to say, assuming a political party has 1 million members countrywide, and each of those members pays 1,000 naira annually as subscription, which will come to around about 83 naira 33 kobo per month. That political party, 1,000 naira from members, will have 1 billion naira. And this is done yearly, and elections don't come every day. Dr. Yunus Atanko, let's have your take on this. There's apparent justification for this financialization, as Garba II has said, and yet political parties appear reluctant to grow and integrate their membership so that they have a stake in the political process and in the parties themselves.
One, it had to do with the electoral legal backing. Two, as regard to the issue of members paying dues, I agree with Senator. Majority of members don't pay dues, and this is simple because they see their members in the Senate, House of Reps, and executive cutting away millions of nairas, and then here they are again seeing people coughing out under any disguise, saying that group, somebody paid for me so X amount of money, paying a humongous sum of money. So they are thinking, where did these people get this particular money from? So why would I now go and pay my meager 1,000 naira for people who would not be able to justify what I'm using that particular money for? So that is the reason why. And that is the reason why when I said treasonable felony, I'm ready to justify it, because it's a war against the state. Because a felony is an against the state when you put a situation in the state that put it in a tremendous danger, because our democracy is in danger and our country is in danger. And then maybe that's the reason why NDLE is asking for people to now start presenting themselves for check of drug check or whatever it is that they are asking everybody to do. Because it doesn't really make sense. And let's even examine this. APC said they had 40 million members. The other day I heard them saying that they bought trucks of membership because in the new Electoral Act, it says clearly that you must submit a month before your convention the list of your members. And so when you times that amount of number of people with just 1,000 naira, it's enough for the party to be self-sufficient. So that means there's no justification, there's no truth in some of the claims that some of these political parties. So we need to enforce going forward. We need to enforce, use our legal apparatus to institutionalize membership dues and to ensure that anybody that wants to run for elections, he is not being monitored. Because the thing is this: by the time you take this same amount of money or group announcing you, at the back of it, it is the same group that you will give contract of roads that will lead from here to Meduguri too. And then by the time you do, the road will not even lead from here to Abuja or from here to Gwari, because they will take their money back. This is how it is done. We know, we've been in the system, so we know how these things run. So there's no justification at all whatsoever. If we want to be truthful to ourselves, we need to look within the same system and find another means of, dividing the boys from the men. But there are men, there are boys also in men. And we have to justify that by making sure that intellect, capacity, merit will rule our election. That is the reason why we are finding a lot of unjustified people running this government. And 2023 should be a determining factor for all of us in Nigeria. So we must look at it. I think it's the right time now to challenge this particular obnoxious law and take charge of our country, because Nigerians need us and then we need Nigeria, and the time is now.
All right, Dr. Tanko, we appreciate your contribution this morning, and you're so emphatic. I also direct to your point, but we still insist that it may not likely be a treasonable felony, as he said. Right, so let me appreciate you one more time for your contribution, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, former IPAC National Chairman. We thank you. Hope to have you some other time on this platform for another set of a conversation.
God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay. All right. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation continues. Please stay with us.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're having a diversity of perspectives on the issue of the high costs of expression of interest and nomination forms, and suggestions also as to how to get around it. Let's bring in one more time Adamu Garba the second. Again, an issue here about alternative sources of funding for political parties. I know that you raised a slate of issues, including candidates or aspirants seeking to hedge against the future once President Buhari's tenure ends in May next year. Look, why is it that members are not paying their dues? And how can the political party managers reverse the clear loss of faith, either in parties or in the system delivering good governance?
You see, political parties are created to regulate the moral balance of a society, because each society is divided into the left and the right. And that is what is called the hallmark of even the ideological projections of political parties. Like if you go back to this ideological component, they are regulated by 4 keywords. The left side is always favoring what is called justice and equality, while the right side always favors order and stability. And that is how you found what is called political ideology. And it is around this ideology that political, economy, and security of nations are defined. So for people on the left, once their main man is on power, they created security policies that seeks to favor them. Like in the left, they pay attention to more of consultative than confrontational security approach. Meanwhile, on the right, they are confrontational as opposed to consultative. In the left, if you come back to the left, you see that they pay so much attention in the area of equality, around gay rights, around social justice, around all those kind of things. So all the policies and the innovations that will thrive around that period will now be favoring that kind of society. While in the right, they pay attention to stability, security, war, and so many issues, because that now is also empowering another enterprise. So it means invariably that this cascade from the bottom to the top of the society based on natural human inclination to being a part of a society. Because sometimes even if you have children, you find out that one of them is more orderly. She doesn't want you to do the right thing, you do the wrong thing. Anytime you do the wrong thing, they will rush to correct you, while the other doesn't care. So this is just a reflection of human nature. Now it is from that that you cascade that make a person to be a stakeholder in your project. Are you a progressive or a conservative party? Like in APC, we are progressive. But how are we projecting the agenda of progressivism to the rich, whereby people can buy their destinies, can be able to stake this their destiny in the future of the APC? Do we have progressive institute? Another way of generating fund. If I am a businessman, currently I'm a businessman, will APC be creating laws in the assemblies, executive orders, and also legal solutions to my issues that can be able to fund and support my business? Is it going to help me when I'm going to school, when I'm going to the hospital, when I'm plying my road? Is it going to support me based on this progressive ideology? So these are the things that make a member to stake himself into the party. If I notice that everything that is progressivism is actually helping me as a member of APC, I will do everything possible to ensure that APC did not lose election as much as possible, simply because that progressivism ideology is what drives the success of everything I do, from the birth I have of my children to the point when I die. So that's exactly how it is. Similarly, when you come to the right, it is the same thing when it is conservative. That is what brings about this stakeholder management. So party administration must understand that they need to create avenues to be able to market this standing point so that people can believe that they are actually advancing the cause of the society. But the situation whereby you have like almost 70% of the members of the APC currently are coming from the conservative PDP and they are calling themselves progressive, it means, as Ni Salako said earlier, that it's just a vehicle for people to grab political power. So it shows very clearly that there's a disconnect between party administration and the way they deliver their own ideology and how people are buying into this ideology. I can give an example of myself. I'm trying to raise funds for buying the form, and I decided to say, okay, in this case, I want to make it public. I don't want to make it private like the other people are doing because of our generation. Publish an account number online and solicit it for support from the people. Let's collectively buy this form together as Nigerian young people. We've recorded over 1,200 transactions between, I think, about 5 days between the day we publish now. Out of these 1,500 transactions, some people are paying 1 naira, some people are paying 5 naira, some people are paying 10 naira, some people are paying 1,000 naira. So we have raised a little bit above 2 million naira over these 5 days. So you see the reflection of our society. You see how it is coming. On the private donation side, we have our own, but that's the public one that is already live. I even published some of these records. So this is showing you the situation we have even in the party system, because the party system have to create an avenue to make a member feel like he has a stake to protect. I have a stake to protect because of your family arrangement in the progressivism. I have a stake to protect because of the way you arrange the laws to ensure that my children get better education. I have a part to stake to ensure that I have the proper healthcare arrangement, that I don't want to lose progressives in power because it's going to affect me. As a businessman, I make more sales when there is progressivism in the government, so I will do everything possible to ensure that progressive stays. With this, you find out that even the party administration, to the government policy, to the spending profile that they do budget annually, all goes back to that area that eventually give back to the party to ensure the party wins election. Look at President Trump and President Biden. This last election that they did, they generated $6.2 billion, the two of them, to contest that election, mostly from private donations. So that is exactly how you see the progressives are doing everything, or I can say the Democrats are doing everything possible to come back and take over power, and also the Republicans are doing everything possible to keep power, simply because they know that if there is no Trump, there might be no kind of policy that is going to favor them in China. And if you come back to Biden, if he's not there, healthcare may suffer, because the progressives or the Democrats are more of the soft part, while the Republicans are more of the hard part. So this is the way you need to look at it. So until we are able to define this thing between black and white, you know, red, between black and white or red and blue, we'll always be having problems. So it's from the political party that we have the problem.
Thank you. Kinsley, I think from this analogy, it does appear that we are non-starters when it comes to political party formation and administration.
That is in the Fourth Republic.
Exactly. Yes. You know, because all things being equal, there's no way a party can run successfully without members paying dues. And if you have to rely on election cycles to be able to raise funds through nomination forms, for many it is abnormal.
A non-starter. Kira, that's an issue that I would like to raise immediately, relating to being financial members paying their dues. If a party member has not paid his or her dues, that party member is not regarded as a financial member. So how will the delegates come about if the party members have not been paying their dues?
Or rather, you could even say, look, if you don't pay your dues, you are not a delegate.
You cannot be a delegate. You cannot even vote to elect a delegate. So, but why do parties appear to? By the way, this is not APC. Well, yesterday we had PDP, and PDP also has its own issues in terms of the numbers that it has raised. So, if you are not a financial member, how can you then vote to elect a delegate and a delegate to elect a candidate?
That's the point.
Distinguished Senator.
No, I agree with you completely. The issue of members not making any form of payment. I could recall in those days under SDP and NRC, they used to have a card, membership card, where a ward member during ward meeting, they will go with their membership cards and you make your payment, and it is inscribed, you know, as if you're paying tithe or doing isusu, you know, the daily contribution thing. I believe that this is what all the parties, especially the two mega parties, in fact, every party, you know, should get involved in. Because if we can get our members, like I said earlier, to begin to, or let there be in our manifesto, in our constitution rather, that if you are not staking, if you are not paying your monthly dues or annual dues, it can be paid quarterly, can be paid monthly, can be paid once in a bulk annually. Recall that
no, if you are not paying it, what happens?
If you are not paying, that does not make you, that disqualifies you from being a stakeholder of that party.
Okay, Senator, please, we will stop you there because of time. We would like to bring in our guests who are reaching us via Zoom. First, let's go to Germany once more. Chibok Kenneth Bandi, let's get your view with respect to party management and the issue of party members not subscribing to the party, or rather not being financial members of the party.
Thank you, sir. I think both the last speaker actually touched at the heart of the matter. Let me start with the senator, and she was right when she said during the NRC and the SDP, there was very clear ideological view, even though it was at the teaching stage, it was at the trying stage, but you could discover that we have a two-party that have a different ideology. And today you ask yourself, I don't want to call party names, but it is very, very difficult to differentiate between APC and PDP. What is their ideology? Are they market-oriented? Are they reform-oriented? Are they youth-oriented? And so what we are lacking presently in the system is that our political parties, they lack ideology. Very, very clear. So once you do not have any orientation, then it's very difficult also to find people who are probably not convinced that any of the two parties are actually, something to go by. That's one. But secondly, going back to what we actually said before, that if a party can muster between 3 and 7 billion through the sales of the form, and you discover that they do not actually care about whether they have membership or not, because they have all the money available, to run the party. So the idea of cultivating their members, trying to make their members to become stakeholders, does no longer exist. So what you have is godfatherism. That's actually what's happening, where basically at every election cycle they divide money, they call so-called rallies, and the people come together and then they call them members. The truth of the matter is that most political parties, they do not have membership. They have membership on paper, because what they do is that during congresses or during state meeting, they can afford to pay for the number of the so-called delegates, or to pay for members, and they say these are our members we have, because they have the money to pay for that. So because of that, they don't really care whether the members are really carried along or not. In my consultation in the past few weeks in Nigeria, Nigerians are actually they are fed up with the system. It's irrespective of which political party. So they are not interested in getting involved in the political party, because they fear that the party is not taking them into consideration. So as long as we have a party that are richer than the state or the country itself, they do not really care what the ordinary Nigerian think about them. They do not think whether they have an ideology or not. All they know is that they have enough money power to call conventions, pay for delegates, and assume that these delegates are all paying members. So I think we are going to go back to the drawing board, where the political parties should begin to define what is their position. Are they youth-oriented? Of course, if they are youth-oriented, one will expect that a lot of youths, I mean, if we can raise how many million for the big brothers during voting, it means that if we have a political party that actually address the concerns of the youth, they will expect to get the youth membership. If we have a political party that actually interested in investment, and that their core ideology is centered around investment, then they have, of course, a lot of business people, a lot of investors, both locally and foreign and international, that want to identify with them, because they see a common denominator. So again, the ideology of party makes a lot of difference.
All right, Honorable Chibuogu Kenneth Bandi, thank you very much for your comments. Let's quickly go over to Abeokuta again. Basharun Niyi Salako, we're at the tail piece of this program, so we'll get your closing thoughts on this. How can we get political parties to better run themselves, that's to say, to raise funds? Because the view out there is, apart from these funds that the political parties will collect ahead of the primaries, state resources are used to fund political parties wherever they are in office. And that's why it is also said that governors are leaders of the party, and sometimes the party secretariat effectively is in government house with the chairman of the party at the state level taking out a seat every time to see His Excellency.
Well, thank you very much. I think for me, particularly for the party that is the ruling party, the question that I ask myself is that what of those people who are already in office at the moment, what role are they playing? What are they contributing to the parties themselves? We hear about these humongous and huge salaries and allowances that our ministers, our members of the House of Representatives and whoever they get. How much of this is plowed back into the party that has produced them? For me, what I would like to see as I want to call it a short term until we can address this idea of getting more ideologically formed parties, is for our political office holders, a portion of their salaries to go towards party administration on a regular basis. In Ogun State here, during the time of the Governor Gbenga Daniel, I recall that depending on the political office that you held, you had to pay a portion of your salary back into the political party on a monthly basis. And this was something that was used to create a mass of funds to run the party. So there are ways in which we can do it other than waiting for this 4-year cycle. Yes, I know that does not address the issue of the party that is not in power, or the party that does not have officers who are elected or whatever. But the fact remains that there are ways in which you can do it other than waiting for these 4-year cycles. Each minister should be paying so much of their money into the pot. Each governor, each member of the House of Rep, each senator must be paying so much of their money back into the party to make the party administration easier. Whatever it is, until people feel included, until people feel part of the process, until people feel that they can contribute to the election of their leaders. Forget their ideology for a minute and think about how
Basharu Ni Salako, we'd like to thank you indeed, for your contribution this morning. Thank you indeed, Basharu Ni Salako, a political analyst, the Nigerian who was once president in the UK. I would like to appreciate you once more for being part of our discussion this morning. Thank you indeed. And also via Zoom from Germany, Honorable Chibogu Kenneth Bandi, we also would like to thank you for being part of our program this morning. Thank you indeed. And of course, distinguished Senator Nkechi Nwogu, Ugonwa Ndibo, Pro-Chancellor of University of Calabar,
former pro-chancellor.
Former pro-chancellor, University of Calabar, and former member of House of Reps, 2017-2021. She's also currently vying for senatorial Abia Central Senatorial District under the APC. That's currently. Also, thank you for your time and your contribution. Of course, Adamu Garba, the second, for me, he brought a new dimension to this conversation. Also, like to thank you for representing the younger generation of Nigerians. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
All right, let's take some foreign tidbits before we round off this edition of the program.
Media report says EU has condemned Russia's decision to cut off gas exports to Poland and Bulgaria, describing it as an instrument of blackmail. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the move showed Russia's unreliability as a supplier, but the Kremlin said Russia had been forced into the action by the unfriendly steps of the Western nations. Europe depends on Russia for more than a third of its gas. While many European countries have taken steps to rid themselves of Russian oil imports since it invaded Ukraine, Russia, however, has continued to supply a large amount of gas to many European countries. Meanwhile, Russia announced that Ukraine's allies have stepped up the supply of weapons, with the US vowing to make sure Ukraine defeats Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that any country trying to intervene in the Ukraine war will face a lightning-fast response, pointing out that Russia has all the tools to respond.
All right, we'd like to thank you for being our guests on Good Morning Nigeria today, and also for tuning in to the program. We are back tomorrow same time. But just before we leave, Kirian, we know with the distinguished Senator Nkechi Nwogu. She was first in the House of Reps, and then of course spent 8 years in the Senate, and now she's seeking to come back to the National Assembly. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Look after yourselves. See you tomorrow.
I am Kirian Umayo. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again.